What is the business that your organization is really in? Do you truly understand and embrace and believe that business? Welcome to Life of a CISO. I'm Dr. Eric Cole, your host, and we'll be taking you on a journey each week on what it takes to be a CISO and what are solutions that you can implement today if you are currently a Chief Information Security Officer or if you want to be one in the future. This is Life of a CISO. Welcome to this week's edition of Life of a CISO with yours truly, Dr. Eric Cole. It's always a pleasure to be with you, even if it's virtually, and just share with you some of my thoughts and ideas of what it takes to be a world-class CISO. One of the questions I get a lot when talking about Chief Information Security Officers is the mindset. What is that right mindset that they need to have? And to me, there's really two components of that. And I sort of call it the internal and the external piece of it. The internal is you have to truly believe that you are a world-class CISO. You need to go in, for most of you, it's making a switch in your identity. Many of you, whether it's 3, 5, 7, 10 years, have had an identity of a world-class security engineer or a world-class technician or a world-class security operations center person that's monitoring, or analyst was the word I was looking for, a world-class SOC analyst. So most of your career or your life, because it's typically the entry point, is identifying with the technical side of things, being able to solve technical problems, being able to explain technical things, being able to go in and respond to an incident, or being able to take an alert in the SOC analyst situation and being able to respond to that quickly and fast. And that's great. I mean, having that core technical knowledge, that core foundational information is important. Because remember, just stepping back for a second, to be a world-class CISO, you need to translate between business and technical. So that means in order to translate, you must speak both languages very, very fluent. Somebody who is a translator knows the two languages they're translating very well and is extremely fluent in those languages. So that background of the technical side and understanding protocol stacks and firewalls and false positives and true positives and all that is awesome, because you must be fluent in cybersecurity technology, in the technical side of the house, in order to be a world-class CISO. However, that is not your identity when you become a CISO. Your identity is that you are a strategic thinker focusing on the business. The primary driver behind a CISO is making cybersecurity a business enabler, utilizing the tools of cybersecurity in order to enable the business to be successful. So if the business is growing, if the business is increasing in profit and margins and revenue, and also protected and secured, then you are doing your job as a CISO. But it's strategic thinking and focusing on the business that is now your primary identity. So in the mindset of a CISO, it's important that you are able to give up that old identity of being a world-class technical engineer and taking on your new identity of a business thought leader. That is most important. And that, to be honest with you, is where I see most people struggle in their journey of a CISO. And some have the CISO title, but they never give up their identity. A title means nothing. A title are words that are printed on your door or on your business card or on your signature for your emails that you send out. But a title doesn't mean anything. What it ultimately comes down to is behind closed doors. When you have an honest conversation with yourself, how do you truly identify yourself? How do you act and behave? Because as I said, having a CISO title, but still identifying as a world-class security engineer and still focusing on solving technical problems, you're never going to be world-class. Now, the good news or the bad news, depending on how you look at it, is CISO is such a sought-after position right now. There are not enough CISOs, and to me, that's going to continue for at least the next 5 to 7 years. So if you've actually had the CISO title at a company, you will always be gainfully employed. But the two things that are more important to me is not whether you're making a lot of money or whether you have a job. What's the two most important things to me is, are you truly happy? And are you really living your purpose? That's what matters to me, because when you are truly living your purpose and you are happy and enjoying each day and you love what you do, that is when world class starts to happen. But if you are not happy and you are not fulfilling your purpose, you can be a very, very well-paid CISO. You could even be a well-known CISO, but you're not going to be world class. So the first thing I really want you to spend some time really thinking about is, do you really want to identify as a strategic business leader? Is that something that you desire, a burning purpose that you love to do, that you really want to enjoy doing? Because I'm just being honest with you. If you're not willing to give up the identity of your past or as being a security engineer, you're never going to truly excel. And based on my two drivers for you, that I want you to be happy and enjoy what you do and fulfill your purpose, there is nothing wrong with being a world-class security engineer. You could be very well sought after. For a good part of my career, I was actually world-class security engineer. And I tell you, I loved it. I traveled the world. I stayed in amazing hotels. I was compensated very, very well for my technical knowledge. So you could do extremely well in your career and be wildly successful as that world-class security engineer. And then about 3 to 5 years ago, I'm not sure exactly when the switch happened, but all of a sudden I sort of got this desire and need that there was more to my purpose, that I really needed to help businesses strategically think about security, because all the technical components in the world are not going to help if businesses aren't secure and successful. And I got so frustrated with hearing people go in and be like, well, to do security correctly, it must negatively impact the business. Who said? Or the one that I'm a peaceful, happy guy, but I tell you, my fists clamp up and I want to punch something when I hear people go in and say, well, performance, speed, or security, pick one, but you can't have all three. Why not? Right? To me, that's as crazy as the phrase, you can't have your cake and eat it too. Why not? What's the point of baking a cake if you can't eat it, right? It's just crazy talk. Of course you can bake your cake and eat it, right? Of course you can go in, and I do it all the time for our clients. You can have performance, you can have speed, you can have functionality, and you can have security. So that frustrated me, so I made a switch in my identity. Now, can I still talk techie? Absolutely. Do I know the technology? Do I stay strong? Yes, because I must stay extremely fluent in both languages in order to be a world-class CISO, because translation is one of the key jobs. But my main identity today is helping thought leaders, is training up and advising CISOs and organizations on strategically allowing cybersecurity to be a business enabler. Just want to take a quick break. I hope you're enjoying the show. I have this free webinar that I would love for you to check out if you want to become a world-class CISO. And in order for you to become world-class, you need to make that identity switch. You need to believe that you can absolutely do it. You must say, this is what I love to do. And when I start working with folks, there's lots of things I give them, but I'll give you one of the basic tests or quizzes. I look at them and say, okay, you're sitting in your office, or if you're still virtual, you're working in your home office, and you get a notification that your organization is suffering a major breach. One of your large-scale databases that has over 50 million records, it's your most critical data store for your entire organization, it has just been compromised. What do you do? What do you do? Now, if your answer is, well, I would immediately run into the data center, or if I'm working remotely, I would immediately secure shell into the servers, and I would start looking at logs and evaluating and looking at alerts and trying to figure out what's really happening and what's really occurring. Awesome. But that is a world-class security engineer. That is identifying as a technical problem solver, because your response and reaction was to jump in and look and solve the technology piece. Now, I love doing this because I would get some people, no, Eric, it was really done to understand strategy, and then I was going to task. No, stop. As remember, with love in my heart, you can lie to some people, but when you look in the mirror, you know the truth, right? And I'm just going to call you out on that. You can go in and try to sugarcoat it, but if your initial response is to run in and start looking at the logs, looking at the alerts, and jumping in to technology to see what's happening, that is identifying as a security engineer. You just got to accept it, trust it, own it. There's nothing wrong with that. For some reason, when I talk to people that think they want to be a CISO and they really don't, they get defensive. And I'm like, own who you are, right? Not everyone was destined or born to be a CISO, and that's okay if that's not who you identify with. But if your answer to that question is, I would immediately set up a meeting with my team. I would start to delegate tasks on who needs to do what and be very clear on what I need and the deliverables and what is the information that's required for me to make a business decision, task my team to do it, and then immediately call or set up a meeting with the CEO or COO or CFO and make them aware of what's happening, what the team is doing, and when you will get back to them with a response. If that's your answer, you're identifying as a strategic business leader. You're identifying and thinking like a CISO. And once again, it's not right or wrong or good or bad. As I mentioned, when I go in and I coach people that think they want to be a CISO, and I tell them, listen, you're identifying and being a world-class security engineer, they get offended like I cursed at them. They're like, Eric, how dare you? I'm like, it's not a bad thing, right? Own who you are and recognize who you are, but don't fight it. Because when you're fighting and pretending to be someone other than your authentic self, that's when you're not going to be happy, you're not going to be successful. I could almost go in and look at someone's career and predict what's happening. If I go in and I see that somebody has had multiple CISO positions, but every 9 to 12 months, they're switching jobs over a 5-year period, pretty much what's going on there is they're struggling with an identity crisis. They're identifying as typically, and I'll look at their background, as wherever they came from. So if they were originally a security engineer or an IT or whatever that is, they're still holding on to that old identity, and they're trying to pretend to be a CISO, but it's not working. Because if it was working, they wouldn't be leaving jobs every 9 to 12 months. Now, yes, there are sometimes strategic reasons why that happens, and there's sometimes other factors at play. But like I said, 95% confidence, you can go in and see what's going on and what's happening. Also, I can talk to folks and very quickly figure out what's happening there. Now, I want to be careful. There's an identity and there's a confidence component. If you've been a world-class security engineer for 8 years and you want to change your identity and you truly are identifying as a strategic business thinker, as a world-class CISO, it's natural for you not to be as confident. Because if you've done something for 8 years and you've done something for 8 days, right? Different levels. But just because you're still learning and you're still trying to figure it out doesn't mean that your inner identity isn't still saying, this is what I love to do. This is what I was born to do. This is what I want. And like I said, your identity can change throughout life, because otherwise what we do at the beginning would be what we're doing at the end, which clearly with me and others is not the case. However, I will warn you, the longer you do something, the stronger that identity becomes. That's why I say it's not impossible, but if you've been a world-class security engineer for 15 years, it is much more difficult for you to become a world-class CISO, because you are changing who you were for 15 years. You are trying to break an identity of how you identified yourself for a good portion of your life, and break and put that to rest and form a new identity. My other question is, if you've been doing world-class security engineer for 15 years, I'm assuming you enjoy it and you're happy. Otherwise, we have to have a different discussion. Why would you do something for 15 years and be miserable? Right? Now, yes, I do run across that, where people have limiting beliefs where they just don't think they could be a CISO, so they stay as a security engineer and they're miserable, right? Because their identity is strategic business thinker, but they're forcing themselves into a position because they have beliefs that are holding them back. So that does happen. But assuming you've loved and enjoy what you're doing and you're happy, my main question that I ask those folks is, why do you want to switch? Why do you want to change your identity? And just make sure that the conviction is really, really there. So first part of the mindset of a CISO is that internal. Make sure you are clear on what you want to do and how you identify yourself. Because if you're identifying yourself in one way, let's say world-class security engineer, and your title is a CISO, strategic business thinker, that's going to create conflict and you're just not going to be successful. So you must make sure that identity aligns. Second is what I call the external mindset. And that external mindset is all about understanding and knowing the business. What is the business that your organization is really in? Do you truly understand and embrace and believe that business? Now, we got to be careful here, because what is offered and what business you're really in could sometimes be two different things. For example, if we take a simple example, say McDonald's, most people would say that the business they're in is hamburgers. Or my kids still make fun of me all the time. I love their filet of fish. It's awesome. I don't know what they do with those buns, but they're awesome. You do filet of fish, extra tartar sauce, slice of American. I mean, it's just amazing. And my kids are like, who goes to McDonald's and orders filet of fish? And what my response is, well, guess what? Other people must, because they still have it on the menu. right? If they weren't selling filet of fish with any frequency, right, they would have taken it off the menu a long time ago, right? So everyone would think that McDonald's, the business, is hamburgers or fast food. It's actually not. If you really look at what business McDonald's is really in, the business that McDonald's is really in is consistent execution and logistics. When you go to any McDonald's anywhere in the world, you are going to expect pretty much the same hamburger, the same quality, the same consistency, and the same time of delivery. I do sometimes, I know I try to eat healthy and other factors there, but sometimes a McDonald's is good. And at least I justify if you throw away the bun and you have the burgers, you're still getting some good protein. Don't know if that's true, but it is what it is. But I'll tell you, pretty much if I go to any McDonald's in the drive-thru and I order 2 cheeseburgers and a filet of fish, I know the quality, I know what I'm going to get, and I know that I will get that in less than 3 minutes. So McDonald's has really mastered the logistics side of implementing consistent, effective, repeatable processes that can deliver consistent quality in a set period of time. That's really the magic of McDonald's. So if you're going in and you're becoming the Chief Information Security Officer of McDonald's, and you don't understand the business they're really in. You just think they're in the business of making hamburgers. So you now go in and start putting all this security in place that impacts consistency, slows down delivery, impacts quality. You're not going to last very long or be very successful there because you are basically hurting the business. The golden rule of cybersecurity that every executive must know and understand is if security negatively impacts the business, security is wrong. Simple, easy, put a bow on it, we're done. Right? There's no debating that. If you negatively impact the business, the true business the organization is in, security is wrong. You must enable the business to be successful. And I'll sometimes get people go, but Eric, aren't there some cases where it's okay to negatively impact the business? Nope. World-class CISOs enable the business to be successful, but it all starts with understanding what business you're really in. And I'll give you another example. I got called in to a large hospital chain that had multiple hospitals across the country. And they were just burning out CISOs. They were like, Eric, we can't keep a CISO for more than 4 months. Either they're awful and we get rid of them or they quit. And what I started noticing is, and I started talking to some of the CISOs that left, they were still cooperative. And all of them, when I asked, what business is this entity in? They all said, healthcare. It's all about healthcare. So they would focus in on securing and protecting client data. Some of them even said, Eric, it's all about PHI and PII, patient healthcare information, personally identifiable information. We have to secure it. We have to lock it down. We have to make sure that a breach doesn't happen. However, when I spent some time at these hospitals, they basically had unique mission and unique value proposition for their customers. They basically had signs, they marketed, they promoted that if you walk in to the emergency room, you will be seen by a doctor within 15 minutes. And when they take blood results or they take x-rays, you will get information back from a doctor within 45 minutes. That's the promise they make. Now, they charge a premium, right? And they're known, but the point is, their business they're really in is not healthcare. The business they're really in is timely, quality service to their customers. So what was happening is all these other CISOs were coming in and putting in steps like multi-factor authentication or additional encryption or all these other things that basically slowed down the process. So now it took a doctor 10 minutes to look up records instead of 5. Well, in a normal hospital where it doesn't matter how long you wait and you could be there for hours and hours and hours, that might be acceptable. That might be fine. But remember, the business this hospital was really in was quality, timely delivery of services. So the driving factor for a CISO in that environment was we must protect and secure the data with speeding up the process. Notice what I said, world-class CISOs enable. So I didn't say keep the same speed. A world-class CISO would actually increase. They would take 15 down to 10. They would take 45 minutes down to 30. So world-class CISOs in that environment would need to go in and really say, how can we utilize cybersecurity to enable the business to deliver even faster, higher quality service? Because the business we're in is all about high speed, high quality delivery. The problem is none of the CISOs ever got that. All the CISOs thought they were working for a hospital, and it was all about data and securing data, and slowing down and making things more difficult and cumbersome was okay. And that didn't work. World-class CISOs are going to spend the first couple of weeks in a job understanding the business they're really in, understanding what is really critical to this organization, and then once they know that, understanding where are the biggest exposures in the organization. When I work with existing CISOs, so somebody who's been a CISO at a company for a while, I always go in and I do a pop quiz. I say, okay, I'm going to ask you 5 questions, and I want you to answer them as quick as possible. What's your name? Where do you live? What's your phone number? What business is your organization really in? And what is the most profitable business line? And world-class CISOs answer all 5 of those questions without missing a beat. Eric Cole, boom, 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 boom. But ones that are struggling often will answer the first 3. My name, here's what I live, my phone number. And then those last 2, they'll struggle. They'll pause, they say, I don't know, or it'll take them a while. World-class CISOs know the business, know what enables the business to be successful, knows the profitable business units, and what's most important to that organization, just like they know their name, their phone number, and where they live. So being a world-class CISO, you need to understand the business, you need to understand the business you're really in, and you need to understand what allows and enables that business to be successful. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Life of a CISO. And remember, it's all about mindset. First, you must be very clear of how you identify yourself. And if you want to be a world-class CISO, you have to be willing to change your identity or take on a new identity. And then the external mindset is you must understand the business the organization is really in. And to be world-class, you must always make cybersecurity enable the business. If you like this episode, drop a comment below. If you're interested in finding out more about our CISO certification, please go to secure-anchor.com/CISO. And I'd love to have one of my consultants jump on a call with you and see if this program can help you become world-class.